All right, boys and girls, want to go over some big news in the NFL. Deshaun Watson traded to the Cleveland Browns today in what was a crazy turn of events. He had originally said he was not going to go to the Browns, so it wound up with like the Panthers, the Falcons, and the Saints, and then the Panthers weren't going to pony up enough guaranteed money, so he was knocked out of that. And then they were talking about the Saints and the Falcons, and then all of a sudden we find out that the Browns are swooping in and getting Deshaun Watson. They wind up trading 3 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and a fifth-round pick, and give him a huge contract. 5 years, $230 million, fully guaranteed. It's the largest guarantee and largest contract in NFL history, or I guess largest guarantee in NFL history because Mahomes has a big deal. But this is an absolutely massive contract and going to have incredible impacts across the NFL for numerous teams. One thing that I thought was interesting about this from Albert Breer, under the terms of the Texans contract, his base was supposed to be $35 million, which means he would have lost $1.94 million for every game that he wound up being suspended. Under the terms of his new deal, he'll lose $55,000 for every game he's suspended. So it's a pretty drastic difference in terms of implications as far as what happens if he is, in fact, suspended. Now, it's curious to see what happens. Do they end up trading, or sorry, not trading, do they end up suspending Deshaun Watson? Ezekiel Elliott in 2017 was accused of domestic abuse, wound up having a police report filed against him, but was not charged. So it's going to be interesting to see how this is handled. Zeke wound up getting a 6-game suspension. He tried to appeal it a few times, and the suspension got put on hold, and then he wound up serving like the full 6-game suspension. So what happens to Watson? Do they wind up giving him a suspension? How much is it worth? Is it a little poor taste to find out that any suspension is really not going to impact him financially at all? I don't know. I feel bad for some Browns fans because I took a browse over at their forums and they are totally split. It seems like half of them are really upset and want nothing to do with the Browns, and then others are, super excited because they got a top quarterback. So it's going to be interesting to see how it affects the NFL from a discipline standpoint, because the NFL is notoriously known for just butchering all sorts of suspensions and things of that nature. Now, how does this impact the NFL? The Texans wind up getting 3 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and a fifth-round pick. So they're going to have the ability to turn that team around really quick. So they still own their number 3 overall pick. Cleveland had, I think it was the 12th pick. So I'm not sure if it impacts us as much as it did if he was going to, say, the Falcons or the Seahawks or the Panthers, but it still impacts us because the way the Texans are going to draft might be different to an extent at number 3 versus what they're going to do at number 12. Do they look offensive line? Do they go best player available at number 3? And then who falls to the Jets at number 4? I'm not exactly sure what direction they go. I'd love to hear from you guys and see where they think the Texans go. I don't know. Do they wheel and deal? Do they turn these picks into more picks? Do they trade down and really revamp their team? I don't think so. Then we got to get into the discussion about what happens with all these teams that were trying to trade for Deshaun Watson, because there is some serious fallout. We saw it start to happen with the Browns and Baker Mayfield demanding a trade after they were interested in Watson, and he wanted nothing to do with it. He wanted to get out of Cleveland. They had denied his trade request. Now I would imagine they are definitely going to trade him. But how do you think Matt Ryan's feeling? Knowing they were going after Deshaun Watson and he was allowed to seek a trade, where does Matt Ryan end up? Does he stay in Atlanta, not have to move? Does he wind up going to the AFC? I think the Colts, for me, is a team that I would look to send him to if I was Atlanta, out of conference. I don't know. I mean, you could send him to Seattle, I guess, but I don't know. I feel like I would want to get him out of there. I think Matt Ryan does have a no trade clause, so I think he is allowed to dictate his terms a little bit. So he could go to a good team if he wants to. The Panthers, what do they do at quarterback? They got Sammy D for another year. Fun fact, listen to this. So this trade is far from over, for sure. But if you take it at face value with what the Jets wound up getting in the Jamal Adams trade and the Sam Darnold trade, so we know what those picks are. We gained a total of 2,801 draft points in terms of value from those two players being traded. As of right now, because we don't know what the first round picks are going to wind up being, so you have to kind of move the needle a little bit, the Texans wound up getting 2,409 points. So a 400-point difference in favor of the Jets for trading Deshaun Watson versus trading Sam Darnold and Jamal Adams. But again, those two first-round picks are only being graded as 580 points. But what is seriously bad for the Browns, if he winds up getting suspended, what do they do at quarterback? They could go like really, really far down the draft board. They may wind up in a situation like the Texans, where when they traded Laramie Tunsil, or when they traded for Laramie Tunsil, and the Dolphins wound up having their number 3 overall pick. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, it should be noted that Deshaun Watson, when playing in cold weather, under 40 degrees, he's 0-3. The AFC North, not very warm. He doesn't get the benefit of the warm weather. He doesn't get the benefit of those domes that he was in down in, the Texans, and I think the Texans have a dome, and Indianapolis playing in that division. So you're going to be outside. That division is a bloodbath too now. Where does he rank in terms of quarterbacks in that division? You got Burrow and you got Lamar Jackson. Steelers got to be pretty frustrated. They don't really have a quarterback other than Mitch Trubisky. So what do the Steelers wind up doing? Then we got to talk about Baker Mayfield. Where does he go? He wants to get traded to the Colts. Do the Browns wind up making a trade inside the AFC? If I were Baker, the Colts are definitely high up on my list. I think the Saints should also be high up on the list. They both have a ton of draft capital. The Saints, if they give up the 18th pick for Baker, I don't think that's that bad. The Colts don't have a first-round pick, so you're talking maybe a second, but I don't actually know their draft stock right now. I mean, they got a second for Wentz, so they got at least that. So do they make a trade with a second? Could it be Atlanta? If Atlanta trades Matt Ryan, this could really change the entire scope of the NFL as far as where the quarterbacks play. And I got to admit, I feel a little bad for Baker. Baker, I wanted Baker before the draft in 2018. I thought the Jets were going to get him at number 3. I didn't think he would go number 1. But, there's definitely enough moments of Baker's career that he kind of rubs me the wrong way, and I kind of enjoy if we can wind up, beating him and seeing him throw a fit. But he winds up playing through injury. He's a really gritty guy. He's someone you want to cheer for and want to root for. And to see Watson wind up going there and seeing what it's doing to that Browns franchise and the fan base and how it's splitting, it's kind of an odd situation. So, the AFC gets more stacked. If you had to rank the top quarterbacks in the NFL, the only 3 that are not top, maybe 4 if you include Kyler. You're talking Brady, Rodgers, Stafford, Kyler as the only NFC quarterbacks that are really worth a damn. I think that's right. I'm probably missing someone in there. But the AFC's loaded. Mahomes, Allen, Watson, Lamar Jackson, Burrow, Herbert. Am I missing some? Carr, Wilson, Russell, and Zach. We'll throw Zach in there. We know he's going to be legit. Going to be insane. So how does this impact the NFL draft with all this stuff? Because now Carolina kind of sitting in this weird situation where they need a quarterback still. Are they taking a quarterback at 6? I've heard a lot of rumblings of Malik Willis at 2. That would be great for the New York Jets. Get guys starting to slide down a little bit further. The more quarterbacks that go high, the more top talent that winds up getting pushed down to us. So we're going to have to wait and see how this all plays out. Tony drops in with a super chat, says, based on the arms race going on in the AFC, is there any way we can trade out of the conference? I've seen that so many times. The AFC is so loaded. I guess you just have to hope by the time Zach really starts clicking, like hopefully he starts clicking this year, but then like next year in 2023 is the year they start pushing all the chips in, and then maybe some of these massive contracts impact teams where they can't sign guys. I'm convinced the salary cap's a myth. I don't think it actually is a thing, and teams just use it as a way to not pay players a ton of money. I don't understand how you could trade for Amari Cooper and trade for Deshaun Watson. I mean, I guess it helps when you wind up getting $1 million contract for this year. I do hope the NFL takes that into account when they decide on a suspension. They are still looking at it. I would imagine, just the swing in difference from $2 million a game to $50,000 a game. It's a lot. I don't know about you. That feels like super shady to me. I get it. They're trying to like work the cap in terms of his cap hit and making things work, but it's like I'd almost like wait. Hopefully he doesn't get suspended this year and he gets whacked next year, and then all of a sudden you wind up having like a massive loss of salary cap. Aaron Honore, thank you for the super chat, says, "Go Jets, LOL. How does this trade affect the draft for the Jets? It looks like both DNs might go 1 and 2. I do think the Lions go defense or Malik Willis. You got to think Hutchinson is probably the favorite to go number 1 overall. Let's say worst case scenario, because if a quarterback goes in front of us, we get someone pushed down the board. Let's say worst case scenario, is it Hamilton, is it Sauce, or is it Kayvon? I don't know which one would be worse for us. Probably Kayvon, I would have to think. You want the edge rushers to fall. Does Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator, wind up trying to emulate the New Orleans Saints defense? Does he take a Kyle Hamilton to be his Marcus Williams? Does he take a Sauce Gardner, the Detroit native, to be his Marshawn Lattimore? They do have Akuda on that roster that they took in the top 10 just 2 years ago. But I've heard rumblings. If they both go D-end, the Texans at 3, I'm fascinated to see how they change their draft strategy based on having 2 picks in the top 12. Because now the Jets pick in front of them at 10. Does that impact them? I don't know. Do they just go best player available? Look, that team needs a lot of help. And they got a lot of help from this trade, for sure. They're going to be able to rebuild that team so much faster. So much faster. Edward Ziff drops in with a super chat. Says, if both Edge and Sauce are gone, trade back number 4. If both edges are gone, so we're saying, Kayvon and Hutch and Sauce are all gone in the top 3. It means Hamilton's there. It means Ekwonu and Neal are there. I don't think I would go offensive line at all because we solved it with Tomlinson for this year. You take a developmental guard later on in the draft. Hamilton, I don't know if I don't want to pull the trigger on him at 4. I really don't. If he winds up sliding to 10, which I think is possible, I would pull the trigger on him there. As far as trading down from 4, it depends how you feel about the edge rushers and how you decide to handle that. Because if you trade for Danielle Hunter, maybe you trade down from 4 and recoup some draft capital. You have your edge rusher, so you don't have to worry about it. Maybe you trade down with Carolina, and you get Carolina and the Falcons and the Seahawks all battling against each other to try and move up to get a quarterback. I would pit division rivals against each other. 100%. That's absolutely the way to do it. If this happened like this, both edges and Sauce are gone, I would try to move down. See if we can get someone to bite on a trade. I still think you got to go edge early. I like Trayvon Walker. I like Jermaine Johnson. I like Karlaftis. Ojabo wound up going out with an injury today at his pro day. Who knows? Maybe he drops a little bit. If you think he slides to the second round, do you take him? He's only been an edge rusher for 2 years. He's only played 1 year. I think he played in 1 game the year prior, or had a few snaps. What happens? What happens? I'm fascinated to see what you guys have to say. Stephen Ingle says the Raiders didn't have to give $28 million to Adams. They could have given him 23 and he still would have been the highest paid wide receiver. Could save $5 million a year, $25 million overall. Just saying. He wouldn't be the highest paid receiver if you gave him 23, because Hopkins gets an annual average salary of I think it's 28, and I'm pretty sure Adams just got 28.5. It's a big deal. It's a massive contract. He deserves it 100%. The guy is absolutely incredible. That AFC West arms race is bananas. Absolutely bananas. Fast Caripotol. I don't know how to pronounce that. We really need to load up on edge rushers and receivers in the draft. I think this is a deep receiver class, not super top heavy, but deep receiver class, and I think it's a very top heavy edge class. I feel like as much as I like the idea of trading for Danielle Hunter for like a second round pick, or maybe it gets a little bit lower depending on what happens right up to this his contract, I think Tuesday is when he gets paid his $18 million. So he's going to have to get moved by then, or he gets released. And I don't know if the Jets are going to attract him if he gets released. But what would they what would they be willing to give up? Would they take like a mid-round pick? Or is someone going to offer something better because he's a premier position? If you do trade for Danielle Hunter, my issue is this draft is so loaded. Do you pass on edge rushers, or does it not impact your draft strategy? I feel like I wouldn't want it to impact the draft strategy, because now you're relying on an injured Carl Lawson coming back from an Achilles and an injured Danielle Hunter coming back from a pec injury, like a torn pec. Now, that's not that bad, and he looked pretty good prior to that. Who knows? But I do think we got to get edge rushers in a deep edge rusher class. So I hope it would not prevent us from doing anything. Kevin says you go JJ or Walker in this scenario, saying if the top three are gone in terms of Sauce and whatever two edge rushers. Sam says the chances of any edge rushers in this class being better than Danielle Hunter is not even 50%. I think that's pretty accurate. You're talking the first round bust potential is about 50% in the first round. And you're hoping you get a guy like Danielle Hunter with your pick. This is the fastest player to 50 sacks in NFL history. And he's still young. You could give him a big contract. Big contract. What's the percentage chance of hitting on a draft pick? Now, it is a lot higher when you're at the top of the draft. Doesn't mean you're going to hit on it. You could always have a Deion Jordan. Insert whatever other Cleveland Farrell. Top draft pick busts. Who knows? NY Jet Superfan says Hopkins is 27.5. I knew he was close. I said 28. I was wrong. Sneakers to boots. The dominoes in the NFL are about to start falling now. Now that you saw Watson get traded, now you'll start seeing some of the other big pieces figure out where they're going to go. I don't know how much space Cleveland has, but you got to figure they're going all in for these next 5 years. You can't pay someone $230 million fully guaranteed and not go all in. I do think the contract itself is good for an NFL system in general. Just being able to have a fully guaranteed deal like this, and Kirk Cousins led the way with this. He had the 3-year fully guaranteed deal. Seeing this type of deal get done helps push contracts into a more guaranteed capacity. It's a good and a bad thing, but I do think it is going to be a ramification of this particular trade. Sam says, I wanted Nakobe Dean, but he's falling way down on everyone's board, and he's only 5'11". I'd be content with Garrett Wilson at 10. Having an elite receiver cast wouldn't hurt. Yeah, you got to help Zach Wilson as much as possible. I love Nakobe Dean. I still like Nakobe Dean. I don't care how tall he is. He was so good and fast at Georgia. I would be very happy with him. Garrett Wilson, I like a lot. I'm a little interested to see how the Jets attack wide receiver because apparently they were interested in Mike Williams, who's 6'5", 215, and Drake London compares a little closer to that particular size profile. So it's gonna be interesting to see what winds up happening with that. Do they go that route? Do they go with someone like a Treylon Burks to try and emulate Deebo Samuel? I don't know. I still think second round is where the value at wide receiver is, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't think 10 was probably wide receiver right now. Steven, I saw how you pronounce it. Did I say Stephen Angle? Steven Angle says, Sam, how do you feel about Devin Lloyd? Devin Lloyd is like 6'3". Big dude. Comparable to who's the receiver out in, is it Fred Warner in San Francisco that's like 6'3"? Roughly the same size. He kind of fell down draft boards a bit. I have seen Devin Lloyd a little bit lower because of his 40 time. So I'm curious to see what winds up happening in that respect. If one of these linebackers falls to like the mid-20s, I'd be considering a trade up. I think they're both really good. Kevin Chatta says, give me an edge on a rookie contract over an injury-prone, overpriced Hunter. Is he injury-prone? That's what you have to determine. Because if he's not, if it was a freak injury last year, like 2020, and a torn pec this year, torn pec isn't really something you re-injure a lot. It's not like a lower leg injury, not a soft tissue injury. Rookie contract's valuable, but proven commodity, and a really good proven commodity, I don't know. It's going to be tough. But I also don't think you're trading a whole heck of a lot for Danielle Hunter. Kevin says, now 6 teams have 2 or more first-round picks in 2022. Is that a record? 6 teams have almost half the first-round picks. Yeah, I mean, there was almost 3 teams with 2 top 10 picks if the Texans had traded him to the Falcons or the Panthers. So the teams with multiple first-round picks, Detroit has 2 and 32. The Jets have 4 and 10. The Giants have 5 and 7. The Texans have 3 and 12. The Eagles have 15, 16, 14, 15, and 19? 14, 15, 19, I think. And then the Packers now have, 22 or 23 and 25 maybe? I think that's right. Lots of first-round picks. Hopefully this changes the balance of power a little bit. Trending to us. Hopefully. Let's see. Bobby Woodruff celebrates 2 months of membership. If you guys are a member of the membership tier and you want to join and support the channel, the little blue button down below, there's some cool perks with it, but just kind of helps support the channel a little bit. And you get a free super chat every month. So, Bobby Woodruff, thank you for using yours. He says, hi, Jets Talk. You are awesome. Thank you. Very happy. Let's see. Philip Allen. Philip Allen drops in with a super chat. Says, trade number 4 to the Texans for the number 12 and a first next year. Give the Texans... If they want 3 and 4, maybe they go Hamilton and an edge rusher. And then what do the Jets do at 10 and 12? You got to hope an edge rusher falls to 10. 12, do you go receiver? Linebacker? Still trade down? I don't know. I'm not sure how this impacts any type of trading scenario for a quarterback. Especially if Willis goes too. Then you kind of like lose all bargaining power. Because I'm not sure Ritter or Pickett or Howell are guys that are going to command a trade up. Not at least in the top 10. So we'll see. What else you guys talking about? See, Sam again says, Daniil had 5 years without an injury. Then he had 2 freak injuries. He's ultra durable. I hope so. I really do. Sneakers Boot says, London's footwork is crazy. It would be good for this offense, I think. his metrics are absolutely wild. I don't know what he's going to wind up running as far as a 40 time goes, but he can jump out of a gym. I think he had like, what was it, 6 games? I think it was 6 games of like 130 yards in 8 games. Let me pull that stat up just so I'm not, saying the wrong stats here. Yeah, so he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games over 130 yards. 137, 170, 165, 130, 162, 171. Guy's an animal. Those big games, San Jose State, Washington State, Oregon State, Colorado, Utah, Notre Dame. Guy's talented. Really talented. Albert Sue drops him in the super chat, says, traded Devonta Adams for same as Jamal Adams. Joe Douglas is the GOAT. Albert Sue, I don't know if you heard this, but that Joe Douglas is part heavenly entity, part offensive lineman, and part GOAT. Pretty much all GOAT. Like everything from like the neck down. Like he's always wearing a suit or, maybe he's wearing like a nice shirt or something. I'm pretty sure it's like GOAT from like here down. You just don't see it in the head. He's a good looking dude. Impressive with trades. I'm shocked teams still are willing to trade with us. Especially like Minnesota. Like Minnesota might be like, hey, you gave us a 4th or we gave you a 4th for Chris Herndon. We don't want to trade with you again. That's your fault. Oh, geez. Mark Molina says, you think we make a big trade this offseason? I think the two that I'd probably be looking at this point, it's Robert Woods with LA. I think there's a chance you'll wind up going after him. ACL tear, but will wind up being ready for training camp. Plays in a system very similar to Mike LaFleur's. Crisp route runner. Probably won't cost a lot. Maybe a 4th round pick. Contract's not terrible. Somewhere around the $12 to $14 million range. You could throw in Brandon Cooks into that conversation as well if you're looking receiver. In terms of other teams or other players, Danielle Hunter is going to be the big one, I think, at edge rusher. I don't think there's a tight end that could be hitting the market or might be tradeable. I was kind of hoping for DJ Moore, but he wound up signing a 4-year extension today. So he's in Carolina for the foreseeable future. Same with Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson signed a 2-year renegotiated deal. Fascinating to see how the Jets will approach wide receiver and edge rusher. I do think we have enough room for a trade. It's just a matter of if we can pull it off and if Joe Douglas is willing to do that. Maybe we wind up trading for Robert Woods during the draft. Like, I could see that. Danielle Hunter, I think, has a bonus prior to, like, Tuesday or Wednesday of this week coming up. So I think he has to be traded soon. But Robert Woods doesn't have that to my knowledge, or at least not a lot. So if the Jets get to, say, the 2nd round of the draft, maybe there's a situation where the Jets wind up saying, hey, our guy, they just didn't make it. We like another guy, but he's not exactly where we thought he was. We need a little bit more help. We'll throw you a 4th round pick, and we'll take on his contract. I think that's enough to get it done. He's like 30 or 31. 30. Let me look him up. How old is he? Robert Woods. 29. 29 years old. Almost 30. He'll be 30 in what is that? 13 days? April 10th. He'll be 30. So 30 years old. Let's see. Where did I see that? Adam Schwind. Adam Schwind! You, my friend, I appreciate you. Adam just joined the first class tier of the Jets Talk 24/7 family. I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys for sitting through ads, too. It does help. It does go a long way. Means a lot. Jay Perez says, what say we get a receiver that can catch the ball? I hope we get a receiver that can catch the ball. I want to see more of Corey Davis. I was excited to see the little bit of connection that they had between Zach Wilson and Corey Davis. Hopefully he holds on to the ball a little bit better. I like to believe that Zach Wilson just throws the ball so hard that he's way too impressive. Or maybe he's lost in Zach Wilson's eyes and he can't stay focused. That's why he's dropping the ball. Got to get our guy a visor. Mitt Flair drops in with Super Chat. Mitt says, it just feels like Joe Douglas will trade for a wide receiver 1, right? I get the feeling he's going to make a trade because I don't know. There doesn't feel like there's a wide receiver 1 out there unless you're going after like DK, and I don't think that's happening. Brandon Cooks is probably the closest thing to a number 1. Robert Woods would probably be just another solid number 2, so you're probably talking, Corey Davis. I mean, Elijah Moore could very well be our number 1. I don't think you necessarily want to go into the season planning for him to be your number 1, but I think you should hope to expect him to be your number 1. I think he's got all the talent in the world. Guy can juke anyone out of, they'd fall over in a phone booth. Guy's legit. Brandon Cook's contract, really not bad. 1 year. Similar to the Amari Cooper situation where they may wind up wanting to move on from him. But you might have to give up a little bit more than, say, a 5th round pick. Maybe it's a 4th. A 3rd. Who knows? It's going to be interesting to see. John Sullivan! John Sullivan, thank you so much for joining the channel, brother! You and Adam should click on the little smiley face in the bottom of your chat box because you're going to see a bunch of new emojis that you're going to be able to use in the live chat and in the comment section. The comment section is a lot of fun. Sometimes you'll see me respond to people and I'll just drop JETS with Fireman Ed just screaming. Oh boy. Oh boy. It's fun. Lex says, Browns giving Watson that contract effed the Cardinals over in their negotiations with Kyler Murray. Yeah, Kyler's going to ask for the moon. He's going to have to. And hey, quarterbacks are worth it. Look, there is a legitimate impact. Look at the Jets right now. Just look at the YouTube channels for the Jets. Most of us, I mean, you see Jet Central's probably around 25,000 or so. I'm just under 20. You got Matt sitting somewhere around 12. Green Bean's around 6. I think the Let's Talk Jets guys are around 7 or 8, somewhere in there. And then you look at the Giants. Giants have won 4 Super Bowls in the last 30 years, 35 years, whatever it is. And you see how many more fans. You look at some of the Giant YouTubers, massive, massive. You look at some of the other YouTube channels, like for the New York Jets themselves and other teams. Other teams have like 100,000 subscribers. Jets are sitting 50,000 maybe, somewhere in there. Jets do a great job in terms of their video production and everything. But the impact of having a good quarterback and you winning games creates a long, steady fanhood. Like, look, if the Jets are playing well, you're going to see more fans for the New York Jets. You're going to see more kids become fans. You're going to see more casual fans become Jet fans. And then all of a sudden, you start growing this base, and it starts riding. How much is that worth to a franchise? You got jersey sales over the course of that person's lifetime. Like, look, I'm not going to buy any other team's jersey. Not really. I mean, I have a Saints jersey. I have a Reggie Bush jersey. That's about it. I was a big Reggie Bush fan back in the day. But other than that, these quarterbacks, probably worth it. Not necessarily worth it in terms of salary cap allocation. Are you going to be able to win with the quarterbacks? But worth it to their teams? Absolutely. 100%. Kyler Murray? Worth it. He'll be worth whatever money he gets. 100%. Ryan Thompson says, I think Corey Davis will be much better when he doesn't have to have cornerback 1 heat on him, should we aim for a wide receiver 1 in the draft or free agency? I think you aim for a wide receiver 1 wherever you can get it. If you think there's one in free agency, go that route first. You don't have to give up any picks. You just give up money. And if we've seen anything over the last few days, clearly the salary cap does not mean anything. Teams are allowed to sign anyone willy-nilly. But I think it's going to have to come through the draft. I would be surprised if it went any other direction. Let's see. John Sullivan just upgraded from, where were you, the economy class? Now he's up to the first class. Look at him. He's flying with the pilot. The pilot. I just referred to myself in the third person. That's pretty bad. Team Killer drops in with Super Chat, says $2 for the Most Fun Jets channel. The Jets YouTubers, we got a rock solid community. It's really cool. We get, like, as far as content creators go for football teams, I tried looking for a Falcons YouTuber last year to do some of the mock draft kind of stuff with, and I couldn't find one. It's unreal. And you look at, like, other teams' fan bases. Philly's got a pretty strong amount of fan channels. The Giants have a halfway decent amount. The Bills have a pretty good amount now. But I feel like the Jets are like the NFC, AFC West of YouTube content creators. But I appreciate it. Means a lot. Devin says, I don't want Robert Woods. Good player, but not the number 1 that will take us over the top. Add muscle to Drake London. He'll be a beast. Drake London would not shock me to be the first wide receiver off the board. Does he get past Atlanta? I was kind of hoping the Texans would trade with Atlanta just because I don't see the Texans going wide receiver. I'd be a little surprised. I don't know. Do they want Garrett Wilson instead? I just don't know. This top 10 is baffling to me. Like, there's a few teams that I can kind of peg. Like, Jaguars, Hutchinson. I feel like I can clearly say that. Lions are a coin flip between a quarterback and a defensive player. But at least you know, like, probably not offense, aside from quarterback. Texans are a wild card with the 2 first-round picks now. The Giants, you got to think, obviously we're thinking edge rusher or something along those lines in the top. The Giants probably looking offensive lineman first because you're not sure what Carolina's going to wind up doing. She's squeaking. She's snoring. Where was I with this? Okay. Carolina winds up, could go offensive line. So I think Giants go O-line at 6 or at 5. Panthers could go O-line or quarterback at 6. Giants could then possibly attack the defensive side of their ball with an edge rusher. I don't see Carolina going defense. Atlanta, you got to think receiver, I would think, or best player available. Like if Hamilton falls to them, maybe that's a situation where they wind up pulling the trigger on him and they get 2 generational prospects in Pitts and Hamilton back-to-back years. I could see that. Seattle, from what I've been looking at, appears to be looking towards edge rusher in this draft. So then the Jets, either wide receiver 2 or 1 at number 10. If there's a guy you covet, maybe you take him there. Adam, the newest member of the channel. Well, second newest member of the channel. Because John just joined. Thank you for the super chat. He says, Seattle not going to pay DK top wide receiver money. Pete wants to run the ball. If they're not going to give him top wide receiver money, go out and trade 10 for him. Just go get him. I'd trade, if you could do it, trade 10 for DK, draft Sauce at 4, trade a second for Danielle Hunter, and then get a tight end. No, get a tight end in the 3rd round. Better value there. With your other second round pick, maybe you go safety. Or a linebacker that's fallen. I don't know. There's so many different ways we could go. I find it hard to believe that you would trade a 24-year-old, like, elite wide receiver. Like, this guy's enormous. I'd trade for him, though. Then you got to think, okay, well, the Packers just got a first and a second for Davante Adams. He got a massive contract because you're talking about probably giving DK close to $30 million a year. I mean, maybe you hold it over his head and you say, hey, we could franchise tag you the next 2 years. We want to negotiate a massive contract for you. We want to pay you $25 million a year. A slight discount, maybe not the highest paid wide receiver. Or maybe you build in incentives. But do they trade him? That's the big thing. And is 10 too much to give up? Because you're giving him a huge contract. Apparently, the Packers offered more money than what the Raiders gave for Davante Adams. And Davante Adams was like, nah, I'm out. Get out of here. Lex says, Falcons going defense or O-line or wide receiver at 8, regardless of if they trade Ryan or not. Next year's quarterback class is way better than the quarterback class this year. Why would they trade up? Well, put it this way. I was definitely of the opinion that the 2018 draft class was going to be far superior to the 2017 draft class. And there was a lot of Jet fans who opted not to go quarterback, even though we definitely needed it, but we had an eye towards our 2018 draft with Baker and Sam and Lamar and Allen and Rosen. And you know what that did? We passed on Watson. We passed on Mahomes. Just because a quarterback class doesn't seem overly top-heavy. Now, granted, those are guys that are going. There were 3 quarterbacks taken in the top 10 that year, with Trubisky and those 2. So clearly different than this year. I don't see 3 quarterbacks going that high. But if there's one and there's a battle between franchise quarterbacks, and you just had this whole situation with Matt Ryan and trying to get Deshaun Watson, I think there's probably some love lost. It's almost like the Jets flirting with Peyton Manning and then having to give Mark Sanchez a massive contract, which was a horrible decision to do. So maybe that's the right move. Maybe you just wait till next year. I think a lot of teams are probably on that boat. Like sort of like, let's see how many games we could lose. Let's build up the team the rest of the way. Go that route. So maybe they don't trade up. We don't need them to trade up. We need the Panthers to think they're going to trade up. Important distinction. Taps any button. I don't know if I realized that your logo was a hamster, but it makes me laugh. Or a gerbil or whatever that is. I think it's a hamster. Taps any button. Thank you for the super chat, brother. Supposedly, Danielle Hunter is being traded soon. He has a bonus coming up Sunday. Okay. Sunday. I've been saying Tuesday. So it's Sunday. So 2 days from now. And a move may happen before then. Also reports are Vikings can change his contract without Danielle's permission. Also, Vikings run a 3-4. Or are converting to a 3-4. So it makes sense to move him. I think a lot of people probably felt like he was going to be moved. His contract's massive right now. Like, his cap hit for the team that trades for him is $20 million. And that's not bad for his age and his type of production. But it's like $26 million for the Vikings. So they're going to have to either cut him or trade him. And if they're not getting any type of trade offers, offer up a late round pick. This is just like the Amari Cooper situation. Maybe you wind up pushing edge to the second round then. If you push edge to the second round, similarly to how you were going to push wide receiver to the second round, you get to give your rookie an opportunity to grow and learn, and then you can kind of see between Danielle Hunter and Carl Lawson who is healthy and who's playing better. Carl Lawson, you can get out of his contract after next year. Danielle Hunter, if he plays on this current contract, obviously he'll hold out next year because he has a lot of he doesn't have like any guaranteed money. So he'll hold out next year if he doesn't get a new contract. Ideally, when you trade for him, that's when you give him a new contract, so that way you don't have to worry about the massive cap hit this year. You can drop that down, give him a signing bonus, and then it makes it a little bit more makes it a little easier to swallow. I don't know. There's a lot of moves you can make. In Joe, I trust. Taps any button. Dropping him another super chat. Says, Danielle Hunter missed 26 games the last 2 seasons. Yes. I believe his first injury was an ACL. I could be wrong on that, though. But it was definitely like more of a freak injury. And then this last year was a torn pec. And you're not really going to re-tear your pec, I don't think. If they thought the little sample size that they got of him just prior to him getting injured this year was enough to show, hey, he's healthy, I'm good with that. I really am. I'm not concerned about the pec. Denzel Mims matters. Thank you for the super chat. Says, if no Thibodeau, then we trade 4 to the Eagles for 15 and 19. We take Wilson at 10, Linderbaum at 15, Nakobe Dean at 19. That would be awesome. If Kayvon's sitting there at number 4 and the Eagles want to come up and get him, I would absolutely make that trade. No questions asked. Absolutely. Although I would say I don't think I would take Wilson at 10. It depends if you trade for Danielle Hunter, right? Like if you give up a second or a third for Danielle Hunter and you make this trade, and now all of a sudden you've got your edge rusher, you get your wide receiver of choice, whether it's Wilson or London. You get a stud center. You can cut McGovern, save $9 million, and now you have a really cheap center for the next 5 years. And you get Nakobe Dean. Oh, man. I might have to change my pants. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Charles says, I also heard not too long ago that the Seahawks released Carlos Dunlap. I wouldn't mind the Jets picking him up. He's a very productive player. He's got to be pretty old now. I don't know. How old is Carlos Dunlap? He is 33. That would fit the bill of a veteran edge rusher. If you want to go the vet edge rusher route and give your guy a little bit of time to kind of go in. I like getting someone like a Vinny Curry in here. Adam drops in with a super chat, says, what if Saleh and Ulbrich want Danielle Hunter, but JD doesn't? Who wins that argument? I would think the coaching staff would win. I think Joe Douglas and the coaching staff are on the same page, and I think they're going to work really closely through this. So I would be surprised if there was any type of back and forth where one was upset over the other. I feel like if our coaches are advocating for a player that is available, that won't cost you a whole lot in terms of draft capital. I think it's in Joe Douglas's best interest to go out and get that player. Now, if you're saying, hey, it's a drafted player and you're scouting that player, then I would probably err on the side of Douglas. He's got a team, that's his job. It's his job to scout. It is Saleh and Ulbrich's job to coach. Now, if Joe Douglas thinks that Danielle Hunter does not have talent, maybe it's a little bit more of a conversation. But I do think that you have been able to see him on display in the NFL. And as long as the medicals check out, I think all parties would probably be on board with this. Tommy Boy. Fat guy in a little coat. Fat guy in a little coat. What's your true record prediction for this year? Also, thank you for all the constant updates. I work with all Giant fans. I feel bad for you, dude. I work with a lot of Giant fans, too. Luckily, at my golf course, I don't deliberately hire Jet fans, but it just sort of worked out that way. Some of them were there before I got there. I got a lot of Jet fans where I work. What's my true record prediction? I don't know. I don't need to have a great record this year. If I see that we are in the hunt come end of November, December, it's on that little graphic in ESPN, like who's possibly getting into the playoffs. I don't need to get in the playoffs. Not this year. I just want to be in the hunt. Because that's success. That is a clear change in where we've been the last, since 2015. We haven't had a shot at the playoffs since that Fitzpatrick year. So, prediction, 7 wins, I think is achievable. If you get 8 and you double your record each of the last 2 years, going from 2 to 4 to 8, I'm all about that. I was hoping Watson would go to an NFC team because we play Cleveland this year, and I don't necessarily want to go against him. But depending on when the game is and what his suspension looks like, we may not have to. So it may actually wind up being, it's not better for us because it's the same amount of players. No players went over in the trade. But they don't have fresh rookies, or at least fresh rookie in the first round, to go against us. So we'll see. Record prediction, 7 or 8 wins. Somewhere in there. Hopefully. Joe King drops in with Super Chat. Thank you, brother. Do the Jets trade for Robert Woods? I would like them to. I tweeted out today that I would like to see this happen. I don't think there's a lot of cost factor in terms of what type of draft pick you're going to have to give up, and I think the Rams would be wise to get a draft pick for Woods right now. Unless they try to re-sign like Odell before they trade Woods, that might be their route that they go. I don't know if Woods has any type of trigger in his contract, and it might be worth it for the Rams to wait until closer to the draft if a team doesn't get their receiver. Or they have to pull the trigger now in fear that someone might draft their receiver in the first round. That could have been an option for Woods. But I like it. I would absolutely go after Woods. He's in a similar offense to what we run here. Clearly that Shanahan-McVay split after Washington led to some very similar offensive assignments, things of that nature. Very similar offenses. Natra. Why do we complain all year long and point what our team needs just to be bargain hunters in the offseason? Shake my head. Now we don't want KT until quarterbacks have 30 seconds in the pocket again. Wow, we need an edge rusher. I don't care if it's KT or not. If it's KT, I'm on board. I'm going to support it. I trust Joe Douglas's talent evaluation. But I think you got to get an edge rusher. You cannot allow quarterbacks to just sit back there and dink and dunk on you. Have to get after the quarterback. 100%. 100%, dude. John says, please pin this comment. The Jets should sign Fletcher Cox and trade for Robert Woods and Danielle Hunter. Would make them instant playoff contenders. Well, it all depends on what happens with Zach Wilson. I've heard Fletcher Cox is going to go back to Philly on a 1-year contract, or at least that's the rumor. I don't think he's signed anything yet. And then, look, I'm on board with Woods or Hunter, or both. I think both would be good. D. Jones says, Woods' contract is ridiculous. I don't think it is. I looked at it earlier today because you can get out of it after this year. And it's only going to cost you, a mid to late round pick most likely. I don't think there's going to be a ton of people in on him. Like, I think Amari Cooper was probably more valuable, although his contract's better. Robert Woods, that is. So if you trade for Robert Woods this year, his contract is $13.5 million. His contract next year, if you don't want to pay it, you can absolutely cut him. $13.7 million. 2024, $15.7 million. 2025, $17 million. So also keep in mind, the cap is going up each one of these years. So a $13.7 million receiver in 2023, really not bad. It is only going to determine, or it's only going to matter if you wind up having a dip off in production because of his age. And even then, you're protected because of it. Like, you can bring in Robert Woods to do what you wanted Amari Cooper to do. Be that guy just in case you don't get the receiver you want in the draft. But you could still hold on to him for a far more reasonable contract. You could renegotiate his deal, give him some more money, and then drop his cap hits in later years if you really don't want him. But I don't think those cap hits are bad at all. I would absolutely trade for Woods. 100%. Jake drops in with Super Chat. Jake says, Woods, a number 2. Need a young number 1. We do need a young number 1. And I think you try to get your young number 1 in the draft. I don't think there is a young number 1 available in free agency or trade. Maybe DK. That's probably the only receiver I would look at and say, okay, that guy is a bona fide number 1. Do you see anyone else out there? Will Fuller, always injured. I don't want to, bring him in. Odell, torn ACL, not bringing him in. So I think it's all right to go with a number 2. You can have a bunch of number 2s, especially if you're going to utilize your tight ends. if your tight end is your de facto number one receiver, like if you had a Gronk-esque talent, I'm not saying the Jets do, but I'm saying if your plan is to use the tight ends that way, you don't necessarily need to overly invest in a wide receiver. It's weird to see how teams kind of handle the different outlets because the Packers with LaFleur were offering Adams a ton of money, but now they have no receivers on that team. Maybe you have, Lazard as your number one. You look at the Rams, similar offense. They get Allen Robinson, Kupp, Odell. They still have Woods under contract. They invest heavily into receiver. Maybe not top tier. I don't know what Kupp's contract is. It's got to be pretty good, I would think. So he would be your top wide receiver, I would think. He's got, where is he? Kupp is getting $15 million a year. So even that $15 million a year for what Cooper Kupp is doing for you, he's only getting paid $250,000 more than Allen Robinson. So they're more a legit wide receiver core, kind of by committee in a weird sense. And then you have the 49ers, who haven't paid a wide receiver a lot of money yet, but they have young guys that they've drafted high. You got Ayuk. You have Debo, who is a second-round pick. So I'm curious to see what direction the Jets go. What are you guys talking about in here? Jets Hub. What's up, dude? He says, looks like Edge, David Ojabo, has suffered an an injury at Michigan's Pro Day. Best of wishes on his recovery. How does this impact the draft? I mean, it depends how serious the injury is. I haven't seen what the injury actually is. I heard lower leg injury, or speculative lower leg injury. So I guess if you guys know what it is, let me know. But it's possible that he slides, right? Like if he's not healthy right now and it's a serious injury, he might drop out of the first round. He doesn't have a ton of tape. He's got 1 year, but he's got great bend and he knows how to get the ball away from a quarterback. Those are two really, really important things. And edge is a premium position. So I'm curious to see where he winds up going. But I would think, who would you put ahead of him? You got the two in Kayvon and Hutch, Karlaftis, Johnson, Walker. You got 5 guys right there that are probably going ahead of him. Is there another guy that sneaks in front of him? Maybe you kind of plug guys in the defensive tackle role that might, go in front of him. I don't know if I'd consider that an edge rusher. I still think he's really good. Adam drops him another super chat. Says, any chance Jets target Jordan Davis? I really don't want to go defensive tackle. I've kind of said this a few times now where it's just, it's not the sexy pick. I understand needing it. That's why I wanted DJ Jones, because I felt like that was an opportunity where the Jets wouldn't have to invest draft capital in a defensive tackle, and it would have given us a little more depth. Fletcher Cox, if you can get him away from Philly if he hasn't signed, I would look at that. Do I want Jordan Davis? Not particularly. I think he's really good. I don't particularly want that. Not that high, at least. Amber says, now Lamar gets paid. Lamar's going to get a massive contract. And what's really impressive about him is he's negotiating it himself. It's the easiest contract in the world. Hey, give me more than the highest paid quarterback. You don't need an agent to do that. Give me what Watson got. I'll take that. No trade clause. Call it a day. Easiest contract in the world. Mike Kaz, Jets all the time, says, Ryan, I still like your take on wide receiver. It's not a big number one, but another second tier. Still need tight end in the draft, but not at 35. Yeah, I think the best part about signing the 2 tight ends in Uzma and Conklin is that we don't have to go tight end in the second round. You could take tight end in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round and get really good value. That's where some of the best tight ends are taken. It's not that high in the second round. Now you can maybe turn your focus towards defensive tackle or towards safety. I would think safety at the top of the second round is far more attractive than tight end at the top of the second round. We'll see where they go. D. Jones says Falcons, Titans, Ravens, Patriots, 48 DFS, all can go wide receiver in round 1. Don't think Christian Watson makes it to round 2. I would be a little surprised if he went in round 1, I think. There's a lot of really good receivers. I mean, you think right off the bat, if Watson goes ahead of us, there's going to be teams that passed on other receivers that fell to us too. Because you've got Garrett, London, Olave, Burks, Jameson Williams, Dotson. Probably those 6 definitely ahead of Christian Watson. And then it probably gets a little bit more murky. And then you talk about Pickens. I like Pickens a lot. There's a few guys I would take, but I like Christian Watson. I like having him on our Senior Bowl. I think that's something that the Jets had an inside look at. And if they pass on him, then I think I'm fine with that too, because I think they understood what they saw and they assigned a value to it. So, I don't know. I think he'll be there in round 2, though. I'd be surprised if he didn't make it there. Kevin drops in with Super Chat, says, hit that like button, people. It really helps out. Yeah, we got 114 likes. And only 400, well, not only. We have 440 people in here. So yeah, smash the like button, boys and girls. Really does help out. You'd be surprised. It allows, when someone clicks on a stream and they see the likes are really high, they're more likely to stay through more of it, which means possibly more ads being shown, which in turn helps the channel. So I appreciate that, Kevin. Thank you. Ooh, GMF. It's my buddy. Says multiple scouting sources at the workout said they heard a pop from the ankle area of David Ojabo. That could cause him to plummet. If that's a really serious ankle injury, he's not going top round. That's when maybe you pull the trigger on him a little bit later. That'd be pretty cool. But look, I want to get edge in the first round. And I think Ojabo, at least at this point, because of the injury, should be off our board. How is Christian Watson Cup? Watson is 6'4" and runs 4.3. He's a gazelle. he's really fast. Now I just hope he's like a way better receiver than what we got out of Mims, because Mims is, what is he, 6'3" and runs a 4.3? Sotopek says Christian Watson is the best receiver in this draft. Bet on it. Jets World says, this is the best I've felt about a team since forever. It feels like you can actually see a direction. It's our time to shine. Let's go Jets. I feel like we have a direction. You're absolutely right. And it feels like Joe Douglas has a plan in place. And you can at least piece it together. Like if the Jets don't trade for an edge rusher or they don't trade for a receiver, those are going to be high priorities. Like top 4 picks. Like absolutely. I like the plan. And I trust our captain. All our guys. I like our coaching staff. Although I guess Benton got in a little bit of trouble. Getting a Dewey on St. Patrick's Day, you dum-dum. What are you doing? Come on. You got the car service. Use the car service. Can't go out on St. Patty's Day and get a Dewey. That's like getting a Dewey on New Year's Eve. It's like really stupid. Really, really dumb. Big Raider Drux. I'm a new subscriber. I think we're a Super Bowl team. Raiders. All love, bro. Shout out to Jets fans for being cool. You're cool. I like you. One of my best friends is a Raider fan. So I have a little bit of insight in the Raiders from him. I was saying, you might have been here. I was saying, Devontae Adams is getting traded for the Raiders. Now I thought Allen Robinson was going to then go to the Packers, and he was waiting for the Adams trade. But so I was half right. I'll take that. Natural Brown drops him in the super chat. Says, give us KT at 4, Garrett at 10, trade back into the first to get Nakobe Dean. Let's go. No more screens. Get Nakobe Dean, LOL. I, I don't hate this. Like, I like going edge rusher and receiver, or edge rusher and something else, and trading back into the first. Even if you trade down from say you trade down from 10 and go back a little bit, like if you go 10 to 20 and then you come up from like 38 to 27 or 28, and you get 3 5-year contracts, that's super attractive. I want to find a reason to get Nakobe Dean. I really do. If I had to pick my favorite players in this draft, it's Sauce Gardner and Nakobe Dean all day. These guys just have so much passion. And I do think that Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh recognize that. And I think they do like those players too. But it's just a matter of where do you take them and with what pick. Because the value isn't necessarily there with the linebacker position. And then corner, you just paid $33 million to get a top 10 corner in Reed. So do you want to allocate that much? Charles says, Ryan, my girlfriend's stepdad is a Raiders fan. I hope you like the stepdad. He's a nice guy. I like the Raiders. I got no ill will towards the Raiders. I really like Derek Carr. I'm glad he's kind of getting things together over there. I think he's better than a lot of people give him credit for, and he falls in that weird category of like almost a Kirk Cousins, where he doesn't quite win the really, really big games, but he comes back from behind a lot. That's sort of his calling card. I won't pretend I watch a ton of Raiders games because them being out on the West Coast, it's kind of tough to watch an East Coast game. Wayne says, why trade into the first for Dean when you could take Muma? It depends how you feel about either one, right? Like, is Muma definitely a second-round pick? He was on your Senior Bowl team. If you really like him, go get Muma. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have to spend a first or a second-round pick on Nakobe Dean. Don't have to trade up. I'm just saying, if you love Nakobe Dean, go make a play for it. John Cucciara Jr. says, WTF, our coach? Yes, John Benton, our offensive line coach and run game coordinator, got pulled over and arrested for a Dewey last night. Not good. Not what you want to see. Juan says, what's the best option for the Colts, Matt Ryan or Baker Mayfield? Baker Mayfield would be the better option because he's the younger guy that could be a franchise quarterback moving forward. Matt Ryan's a lot older. Now, the Colts don't have a first-round pick, so at best, you're giving up a second-round pick, which is solid. I mean, if you can get Baker for a second, that's, all day. But you're probably going to have to give up maybe those 2 seconds that you got for Wentz to go get Baker. Matt Ryan, probably not going to cost you a whole lot. If you wanted to give up a second, that's probably too high. Like I think you could probably get him a little bit lower. I don't know what his contract is, but I can't imagine he's got a whole lot of years left. The Colts are just swinging through quarterbacks. I don't know. When did Luck retire? And then you had, Brissett for a year? They bring in Phillip Rivers. They trade for Carson Wentz. Just blowing themselves up. All right, what are we at? We're at an hour. I'm gonna cut it short there. I'm not gonna do a full 2 hours. Stream 2 hours every day like the entire week. But this is fun. This is a good little impromptu stream. I definitely enjoy this. We'll wrap this all up. So Watson traded to the Browns, 3 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and a fifth-round pick, $230 million guaranteed over 5 years. He lowered his contract cap hit for this year to $1 million, which means if he is suspended, he's not losing $2 million a game. He is losing $50,000 a game. So it's going to be interesting to see what winds up happening with that, see how it impacts the rest of the league, and see where all these quarterbacks end up going. And who gets signed in the draft. Oh, got a super chat right at the end here. Snuck it in. Adam says, should Aaron Rodgers retire? Not for 3 years. He's making $50 million a year. It's like that old skit from what was it? Daniel Tosh? Brett Favre. Everyone thinks you should retire. You said $15 million a year. Yeah, they can go F themselves. I'm going to be backup. Make a bunch of money. Crazy sauce. But no, I don't think Aaron should retire. He's making a bunch of money. 150 over 3 years. Crazy town. All right, guys. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for hanging out. Maybe I'll pop on live if something else happens. We'll see. Thank you so much. This is Jets Talk signing off. JETS.